Hello everyone, we are back with another video on this series, and today we have another interesting set of guys from IIM Bangalore, and we have Akriti, Mansi and Krishna, who are all CAs by qualification here with us, and they're going to discuss how it is to pursue an MBA after your CA. So first up, I am Anant and I am an MBA candidate here at IIM Bangalore. I am a CFA charter holder as well. So we'll just have a quick round of introductions, starting with Akriti. Akriti.
Right. Hi, Anant. So I'm a chartered accountant qualified in May 2019 after a couple of failed attempts at the CA final. I completed my graduation from R.A. Podar College in Mumbai, and alongside my BCom studies, I was also, doing my articleship and pursuing the CA course. I kind of did my articleship in direct tax litigation and appeals from a mid-sized firm in Mumbai itself. And post-qualification, I worked with a startup for around 2.5 years in a general management and strategy domain. So not exactly the work of a CA. So something about me.
What about you, Mansi?
Yeah, so basically, I am actually a fresher over here by qualification, if I have to put it like that. I'm just have like 4 months of work ex in mergers and acquisition KPMG. I became a CA in April 2020. And before that, I was pursuing BCom honors from SRCC, and I completed my graduation in 2017. So yeah, that's about me.
Right. Krishna, what do you?
Yeah, so I did my undergrad from Maharaja Agrawal College, Delhi University in 2016. Post that, I did articleship with KPMG in the statutory audit domain till 19, and 19 itself I qualified as a chartered accountant. Post which I transitioned to management consulting arm of KPMG, wherein I worked for about 12 months before joining IIM Bangalore.
Right. Right, guys. So first up, I would be really interested to know into what led you to pursue CA in the first place. So Krishna, you graduated college in 2016. I mean, was it something you had in mind, right, from when you were a kid, somebody in the family, before college, after college? If you can just share that with us.
Yeah, like I would say from the very beginning itself, I've loved finance, accounting, business domains. And ever since childhood, I've always envisaged myself as a thorough finance professional. So to me personally, taking up chartered accountancy was a very natural transmission, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So anything that sort of pushed you across the ledge on that decision?
No, I would rather say it was something intrinsic only. It was kind of an internal motivation only. It was, as I mentioned, I see myself as a finance professional eventually. So quite a natural transition into chartered accountancy.
Right. How about you, Mansi?
So I remember I come from a family of doctors. So everyone in my family is a doctor, and you cannot even think about being a chartered accountant in my family. So over there, I took PCMB in 11th standard. But as per my school, I was given the option that I could try and sit for other streams also. So I remember sitting for this accountancy class, and I fell in love. And I guess that's when I knew that I had to pursue CA. So even while I was studying in SRCC, I always knew that I had to become a chartered accountant. So yeah, that's the story about me.
Great. And Akriti, what made you take the CA plunge?
Well, I think it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction. To be really honest, when you were a kid in the 12th standard in Mumbai back then, there were very few viable options alongside graduation, except for CA. And, coming from a family where my parents themselves are, both of them are entrepreneurs, and almost all the other relatives that I know of are chartered accountants. So there was this huge push towards, going for that stream. Though that was the trigger point, but then as I, delved deeper into my articleship, I found that, I actually found it interesting. So I think that was kind of a catalyst for me to learn more and do more in that sector.
Mm-hmm. And thereafter, like after having worked for more than 2 years, you decided to step back into the academic domain and pursue an MBA. How did that decision come across?
So, well, Anand, what happened in our articleship is I think all of us may have had an experience of being on the consultant side of the table. And for me, since I worked with a startup, especially in the strategy and general management domains, I had the opportunity to look at things from an owner's perspective, or very close to the owner's perspective. And I realized that life or rather business is much bigger than just finance, though it is a very important part. And I also found that, there would be certain skill sets which I would need to develop, or certain things that I would need to know going forward if I plan to, have aspirations to either lead a business or to even found my own business someday, which led me to MBA.
Right. And Mansi, from PCMB to falling in love with accounting, and then to BCom, and then to CA, and then to MBA. Sounds like a long time, but the last part, how did that turn out?
So I remember it was the second year of my articleship, and working in KPMG sort of gave me an experience as to how my future life is going to be like if I just continue with CA, right? And I just felt like the rewards were not there. I was working my ass off, even cleared CA, and then after that I was working, I think, till 12 or 1 in the night every single day. And with the pandemic hitting, there was no work-life balance left. So that is when I realized I really need to get those rewards, which I'm actually working for. So I guess MBA was a step closer towards that.
Right. And Krishna,
Yeah.
how did it work out for you?
Yeah, so I personally never intended to do MBA, but it was like while post qualification, while I was working in consulting, I was working on a very big ticket size project wherein I realized that there's certain aspects of management which essentially are quite vital for let's say career perspective, be it in the form of project management, people management, and stuff. That is when was, I would say, my trigger point of considering MBA. And yeah, so pretty much it. So it was primarily driven by my work while working on ground in consulting. That is when I took the plunge of taking it.
Right. So help me walk back in time, and this is the time when Krishna has realized it's time to pursue an MBA. And here we are. You were close to 2 years into your then role. You're comfortable. You are learning a lot on the job, but you find a gap. So you decide to take the CAT route. In that sense, how did you set about to prepare for it? Like both in terms of CAT and later when you were preparing for interviews, how was that process for you? What was your thought process?
So yeah, to me, the fundamental was very simple. It was consistency, which helped me, crack CAT. Because I don't think we as a CA need to do any heavy loading when it comes to CAT. I believe I used to study for like 30 to 60 minutes every day. But since May or June itself, somewhere around that time, because I was parallelly preparing for my CFA level 1 and my CPA exams as well. So I believe consistency is the key to CAT. There's no heavy loading which is required, which essentially we undergo through in the professional courses, let's say CA, CS, or CFA as well. So I would say consistency played in my favor.
Right. And now the CAT is done. You have received an excellent score. Now it's the time for interviews.
Yeah.
How did you go about preparing for them?
For interviews, I essentially enrolled everywhere. Almost everywhere. I remember at least 4-5 institutes wherein I registered for interviews. That was primarily to gain insights, different perspective of interviews. But let me assure you, every interview is unique. There's no so every for sure you should be ready for surprise on the D-Day. But my only perspective was to gain different insights while taking mocks, which is very important, I would say. But the final interview is never, it's not even close to what you will practice. But yeah, it helps to get yourself into that mindset per se.
It certainly does. I mean, given that you are at IIMB currently, that is testament enough, I believe. But yeah, over to Mansi.
Yeah, so talking about basically my prep. So as I already told, my work-life balance was not there. So I remember till August, I was not studying. So that was really difficult for me to get into that groove of having that kind of a consistency. But one thing I made sure I did enroll into time. That sort of like made sure that every weekend, at least I'm studying something, maybe for 3-4 hours or whatever, but at least I'm studying that over the weekend. I get some time. That was first thing. Second thing, I made the decision to leave my job 2 months before the CAT exam, right? So that was a very difficult step for me, but I sort of understood that it's right now or never, right? So I went ahead with that. And for 2 months, I sort of sat and I just I really worked hard to get a good score. So that was as to what to prepare and stuff. And coming to interviews, it's majorly on the basis of having the right kind of mindset. So first of all, having a chill mindset is very important. Chilling before the interviews is very important. Second, you need to enroll with the right people. Like I enrolled with Time and I enrolled with Malay Ray. So basically, my understanding of different current scenarios that are going on in the country, all over the world, all of those things were really polished. And by the end of it, it's just a game of perception, right? How you look at different things and how you can speak about it. So yeah.
Right. Just a disclaimer here, guys. We're not promoting anyone. She's just sharing the providers she associated with. And yeah, over to you, Akriti. Preparing
Right.
that.
Yeah, so I think I had a slightly different problem from what Krishna and Mansi talked about, in the sense that I had to tell my bosses early on that I am going to go ahead for something like CAT, which is going to be high commitment on my time and potentially leads me out of the organization. And this is, I mean, I told them this as early as perhaps June for an exam, which is in November, which you don't even know how you're going to fare at. And throughout the 6 months time period that I was kind of working, as well as trying to find a replacement for myself, as well as grooming people across the organization, and tackling CAT simultaneously, I realized that I needed a accountability kind of a mechanism. And so for that simple purpose, I enrolled with some classes, just to give me that one push that, okay, there's something happening, and there's a peer group that you're kind of comparing yourself to all the time. And had prompted me to give mocks and prepare and all of that. But again, not very intensive. Towards the end, though, the last month before the CAT, I made sure to make it very, very time intensive, and work from home, of course, enabled that a little bit for me. I think once the CAT was out, and once we knew that the score was going to be a decent amount and all that, I did start working towards interviews again with a coach, but nothing too serious until maybe a week before my first interview. So, and that's when I realized that I need to take a leave from work right now. Otherwise, I'm not going to clear my interviews. And I had signed up for processes at 11 different institutes or 11 different courses. And it was quite a packed February, March, if you can imagine. And basically, I think through this entire process, what helped a lot, I think even more than the coaching aspect and all of this, was just having a very systematic approach. I had timetables for everything, I had trackers for everything, and I had really good friends who used to talk with me, share experiences, and we used to compare notes on interviews. If the actual interview was maybe half an hour, we used to discuss it for a couple of hours after that. So that after every thing. And I think out of all of this, I think I developed a method to crack similar exams, and also really good friend days.
So if I were to just ask you a further question to this, like, were these people who were fellow chartered accountants preparing with you, or were these old-time friends who were not preparing, or were these friends from another background who were preparing with you who helped you out?
To be really honest, we all met very serendipitously, almost all of us online. And while some of them were chartered accountants, but most of them were from very different domains. There were a few HR professionals, a couple of econ grads, some person who was an engineer, somebody from an arts major, and even a lawyer for that matter, actually. So there was no structure to this. I think it just came to be.
Right, right. And here you are, having signed up for 11 institutes by your own account. So how did you manage to decide on which institute you need to join?
Okay, so in my head, there was, of course, IIM Bangalore was has always been sort of a dream for me. And anybody, in my family or my friend circle will kind of tell you the way I was preparing myself for CAT for IIM Bangalore. And so when that call came, I was overjoyed, of course, but everything else was basically redundancies. And of course, they are great institutes by their own. But I needed backups. That was how it was. And given the fact that my preparation started very late, of course, I was very scared that I wouldn't make it. So that was definitely a thing. But I'm Bangalore on a dream basis. I mean, of course, that it's aspirational for me. And I really like the fact that the work life and the balance of life, I mean work and academic work and all the other aspects, and it kind of allows you to tailor your MBA experience to what you want to want to gain out of it. So I think that is something that I really like about IIM Bangalore.
Right. Right. How about you, Mansi?
So I think for me, it was basically two major things. First, as one of my friends was basically an alum of IIM Bangalore, so he used to speak highly about the institution, about the life over here, about the hostels, about the greenery, about the campus, everything. So that was something that like made me fall in love. Okay, if this guy is talking about it so passionately, I want to find out what's there in the college, right? And even about the faculty. So this was, I think, one of the reasons. And the second reason was definitely because I think the mean age in IIM Bangalore is sort of similar to around 24, 25. And I feel like when people are in the same stage of their lives, it sort of gels well with your own personality and about your own career development and everything. So that was something that I had in mind.
Right. Not a very subtle reminder of our respective ages. Right. So Krishna, you've been working for 2 years as a management consultant. You have a particular approach to problems. Here you had a problem of choice. How did you decide that IIM Bangalore is the place to be?
Yeah, I would say I worked for 12 months, but yeah, well, I would say beggars can't be choosers in my case. But to be very honest, time travel 12 months, given a choice, I'll any day pick IIM Bangalore, which is essentially due to the flexibility it offers in terms of the curriculum and essentially the intellectually stimulating environment which we all are witnessing here, and obviously the lush green, beautiful campus. So I would say it was a blessing in disguise for me.
Right. I cannot agree more. Yeah, but given the kind of background that all of us here come from, was there anything that you found to be particularly challenging, in the sense that CAs are not the kind of like people you find in abundance at master's institutes, MBA institutes particularly? So anything that you found to be particularly challenging, or anything which you found to be to your own benefit, Krishna?
Yeah. So in the context, I would say like people here at IIM Bangalore are very unique, and everyone is master of its own in their own field. So I would say like I am still learning every day from my peers, and obviously I also try and give insights whatever I can. So that is where this complementarity effect kicks in. I won't term it as advantage disadvantage, but I would rather say it is a win-win situation for all of us here, wherein people with different perspective and unique experiences are culminating and sharing their opinions. Yeah.
Right. Akruti, your take on this?
I think I agree with Krishna in part, and of course, to add to that, I think for me personally, it was difficult because I had lived at home and kind of been in the vicinity of Mumbai for a good 24 years of my life, and for the first time to step out of home and into a campus full of people my age, and experiencing a college life which for me was very less owing to the articleship kind of pressure. It was of course a very new experience, one that I was also excited for but also dreading in a way. But I think once I settled on campus and understood some of the ways and norms of the student community, I found it very easy to kind of gel in. In fact, I started deriving a lot of energy from my interactions with people over here, and that I think is something that I really look forward to on a daily basis. It drives me a lot. Of course, there are some more things which are difficult for us. There are some statistics-based subjects which are very difficult for people with a non-engineering background. But I think you learn to pull through. To be honest, we also have some, advantages, especially in terms of the accounting subjects and some theory-based subjects, which we naturally become good at writing and explaining, because that's what we've done for the major part of our CA course or articleship, right? So yeah, I don't think anybody has an unfair advantage over here. It's just that it's perception, and you just have to pick up everything that you can from the next guy.
Right. Mansi, anything to add to that?
Yeah, basically it's about that. I think one of the biggest, I will not term it as disadvantage, but something which is very difficult for us is definitely the subjects which are around engineering, like for example, DS or maybe other chain management subjects. That is something definitely I had a great problem with. But then I was actually able to pull through those subjects because of my friends, my engineer friends. So I think that's the beauty about IIM Bangalore, the synergy that you sort of find between different kind of people that come together and help each other just to get a okay grade.
Right. Right. And is there any advice you'd like to share, Mansi, for aspiring CAs or qualified chartered accountants who wish to pursue an MBA in the future?
Yeah, one thing that I have seen, that brand value and having a impeccable academic as in background really matters. Like even you can sort of not do good on the CAT day, but still you can actually get calls from A, B, and C. It all depends upon what you have done in your past life. So don't take that lightly. You have to be really focused throughout the whole journey.
Right. Right. Krishna?
Yeah. I would say, given the opportunity costs for chartered accountants are quite high, one should really evaluate before taking a call if he or she wants to do MBA or not. Like, because there are certain criteria laid by the institutes specifically when it comes, though I don't believe in them, but still there are criteria for 10, 12, graduation and other stuff, work-ex. So one should evaluate and be thorough with the criteria, and if the candidates fits that criteria before taking that decision. So yeah.
Right. Akriti, your advice for CAs looking for an MBA?
I think I'd say a couple of things. First of all, CAs are generally not viewed to be a very well-rounded, profile on a MBA campus, because in the bid of having very good academics and of course excelling at our articleship, etc., we end up sacrificing our extracurricular interests. Sometimes we don't really have any co-curriculars to speak of and all of these things. So I would encourage candidates that if they are, going for this for, let's say, next year, so it makes sense to take that 1 year to, besides, clearing the entrance exams and preparing for them, also build up your profile in that direction. So if you find that you are lopsided in a way, make sure that you balance out the other things. For me personally, let's say if that was to repopulate my blog. So I used to write way back in college and I never really found time to, get back to it. Let's say there was a couple of years of lapse. And I took that time to, revive my blog and religiously used to write a few posts, at least, whatever I can think of and all of these things. And read, especially because that was again something which was something of a, along with a full-time job, it's very difficult to balance all of these things. So I think that's my first recommendation. The second is that when you enter this kind of a course, you have to come with a very, very open mind. You cannot think about, staying within your own comfort zone. You have to stretch yourself and kind of step out in every way possible. And yes, that means everything from, trying new subjects which are not familiar to you, to making new friends which are from different domains. So I think, and it doesn't really matter which institute you're at. This is just universal.
Right. And my final question to you guys, Akriti, is there anything that only Akriti could tell to a CA looking out for an MBA?
Okay, I'll share a snippet from my IIM Bangalore interview, where after I told the panel that I was essentially a CA who had completed BCom with mediocre marks, gone on to do CA, done her articleship in direct tax, but then ended up working at a startup in a strategy domain, and used to learn German and Japanese just because she liked it. They just asked me that I was a very confused person, first of all, and what was I even doing here? And trust me, for a minute, I felt like laughing out loud there because it was true. But all I want to tell people is that no matter how awkward or unplanned or just muddled your journey seems right now to you, it will all work out. It's just a matter of perspective. So with that, I'd encourage you to really go forward and push yourself to try out new things even before you step into the MBA, so that you are already comfortable with, stepping your boundaries.
And Akriti, I believe this is a question we should have covered in the first place. And since this has come up, and if you're comfortable, could you spill the beans on how your interview was at IIM Bangalore? Just a few takeaways or whatever you remember?
Okay, so I mean, why takeaways? I actually, I mean, I was one of those sticklers who have like a full word for word transcript on everything. Okay,
Perfect.
so
Perfect.
so with that, I mean, IIM Bangalore was my last interview of the season. After 10 successful ones, there was IIM Bangalore. So by this time, I was already very well prepared on my answers and all. But they didn't really start with an introduction or anything of that sort. They just scanned through my SOP, took a couple of minutes in front of me only to do that, and just started asking me about things that I used to do at my workplace and how I was adding value. Why was my job even important? Why was I so confused in life, etc., etc. And well, they tried asking me some accounting questions, which really, honestly, I had been out of touch with the sector for a good 3 years by then. So I had to unfortunately tell them that I didn't know it. But there were some other things which I knew from the line of work that I had been in, which I was able to explain to them very well. And I think the summary of the interview is that it is a lot based upon your personal life experiences, and they don't come with a preempted set of questions. It is what you answer to them that leads on the next line of questioning. And to that effect, I mean, I would urge candidates to be a little structured and correct in the way that they are answering things, because next thing you say some untoward thing here and there, and you're being grilled on it. So you don't want to do that. But from personal experience, I would say don't be diplomatic, and take a stand, but know why you're taking that stand. You may not be right or wrong, but at the end of the day, the interview panel is also a set of people. So just have a conversation, I guess.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that detail there, Akriti. Krishna, again, two questions. First is, how was your interview experience here at IIM Bangalore? And the second being, anything that Krishna specifically would like to share with people who are willing to look at MBA as an option after CA.
So we, as a chartered accountant, there's a level of expectancy from the whosoever is taking our interview that the expectations from a CA is altogether expectations from others. Let's say a fresher, because we already have gone through that articleship and maybe work experience phase. So my interview was essentially entirely SOP driven, but it was kind of like a setup wherein four intellectual people are discussing something really, I would say, constructive. But at the same time, I nowhere feel that I'm any which way match the intellect of JD search or sub research. At the same time, but the point which I want to drive is that the expectations from chartered accountants are different than those of others. So hence, students should prepare accordingly and be very thorough with their concepts, or let's say application of their concepts in real time.
Right. And if at all you're comfortable sharing more details about your interview, we'd really like that.
Sure. So what I can do is I can also, as Akriti mentioned, I can prepare a transcript and share it with you so that you can publish it on your channel.
Certainly, certainly. Thank you there, Krishna.
Yeah. And the two things which you mentioned, one I would say is learning doesn't come from books. So wherein students tend to get fixated to academics, what I believe is most of the learning here at MBA is driven out of the class, to let's say peer interactions, to self-reflections, experiences, I would rather say. So that is one thing. Second thing I would say is that, okay, so what worked for me was that I was very much prepared with my objectives. So what will be my key takeaways from the MBA from the day zero, and enjoy the process. So I would also recommend everyone to have their priorities sorted. For instance, for me, it was, let's say, upskilling my business acumen, or let's say solving all kinds of business problems, be it strategy, finance, marketing, HR. So yeah, so having priorities sorted and focusing outside the classroom would be the two advices, at least which work for me.
Right. Thanks. So Mansi, can you wrap this up for us on the two questions, your interview and two things only Mansi can share with other aspirants?
So okay, let me talk about my interview. Unlike the rest of my two companions over here, mine was not SOP driven. It was basically purely they just wanted to know what I did while I was working with KPMG. So I had to be like really thorough with whatever I did, and they went actually in depth. They wanted to know things. What did I do in M&A tax? So those things, because I had actually worked like for a good amount of 3 years. So I had a very good understanding into that. So over that aspect, it was very okay. But on the second aspect, that they wanted to know whether I have an open mind or not. So I remember the professor who was taking my interview was a marketing professor. Coming from a background of finance, they wanted to know whether I'll be okay taking marketing as as a career option later on. So as so sort of I had to show that I have an open mind and everything, but at the same point of time, you don't have to seem like a confused personality over there also. So I told them that definitely that is something I'll be willing to sort of explore that subject. But I do understand that I, being a chartered accountant, I have a certain forte and I have certain objectives with which I'm doing. I'm entering an MBA college with, and that was sort of to have a job in finance, right? So I was very upfront about it. I was being honest. Okay, I will have an open mind, but to a certain degree, right? So that was something that was, I think, a brownie point for me in the interview. That was the one thing. Coming to two things, I don't have two things, but one thing I have to tell everyone that you have to be good at networking. Like if you want to break MBA, you have to be good at that. And it doesn't matter. People can say I'm an introvert. You need to change that about yourself. Like you have to mold your personality and become a person who you can actually go up to anyone and strike a conversation. You have that comes with practice, but that is something you need to do in MBA.
Right. You're right, guys. That was what I had in mind. If there is anything you'd like to add here, please feel free to do so. But otherwise, I'd like to say thank you very, very much for agreeing to come on this platform. I am very confident that CAs, budding and qualified both, who are considering or are yet to consider the MBA route, would certainly find this video to be very, very helpful. So kudos to all of you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Anant.